It's the Pacers versus LeBron and the Lakers. It's the finals of the in-season tournament. It's in Las Vegas, the glamour of the Sin City, and it's all happening tonight. How can the Pacers beat the Lakers and so much more? All coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, a rare Saturday episode because I'm in Vegas and I'm in a hotel room by myself, and I have the time, and it's the biggest game of the Pacers season, and the biggest game the Pacers have played in. Depends on how you feel about the in-season tournament versus the playoffs. You could say 3 years. You could say 5 years. It'll be their biggest game in front of fans for at least 5 years. To me, they're on ESPN. They're playing LeBron James. It's a big deal, and it's become a big deal. And I think that has even surprised some people in the league, how extremely popular the in-season tournament's been. But here we are. The Pacers are in the finals. They've earned the right to be here. And how fitting. And I have a lot to talk about with this, that they're playing the Lakers. To me, I'm going to talk about the Lakers a lot today. This is the perfect opponent for this Pacers team. Not because it's the team they can beat the easiest. They could have beat the Pelicans way easier than they could beat this Lakers team. This Lakers team's good and checks a lot of the boxes of teams that have kicked the Pacers' butt this season, right? Orlando, for example, Boston. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is perfect to me in terms of every part of what makes a good sporting event, right? First of all, the Pacers have made the NBA Finals one time before, ever, 2000. They played the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq, right? Funnily enough, Rick Carlisle was an assistant for the Pacers back then. I just was walking alongside him while he was headed somewhere else in the tunnel. On Friday after practice, and I asked him about that. Does he remember anything about that series? Like, is there any sort of full circle moment here? Right? He said he remembered that series really well, but he did say, this is not the NBA Finals, but this is the finals of something that's very significant because it's the first of its kind. I suppose you can draw some comparisons given the two franchises, organizations, whatever the case. It's a challenge that we love. And I think that is a big part of this game is the Pacers have another moment. And it's cool to me, one, from a narrative and storytelling perspective, that it's against a team that beat them in their only actual NBA Finals appearance. Two, cool thing here, because we're in Vegas, which is way closer to LA than it is to Indiana, and because the Lakers are the most popular team on the planet, it's going to be 95% Lakers fans at this game. That's not to say that Pacers fans didn't travel well. I saw a lot of them in that Bucks game. It's just a reality of the world. And I think the Pacers know that. Some of their players have talked about, what the playing the Lakers means and what that's going to be like on tonight. I almost said on Saturday. Tonight. And that's going to be an added challenge to it. And playing LeBron, the Pacers' kryptonite in the playoffs in 2012, 13, 11, 16, and 17. I mean, it's just like the perfect narrative pull for the Pacers of just beating all of these obstacles and all these things that have toppled you as a franchise before. And then for this year's team, ignoring all the past, right, to have to run through a gauntlet of the top 4 teams from the Eastern Conference playoffs last year, right? Cleveland and Philly are in your group. They were 3 and 4. You had to be Boston, who was 2 in the knockout rounds. You have to be Milwaukee, who was 1 in the knockout rounds, right? That's awesome. That's as hard of a gauntlet as it gets. How about the King being your final test? And they've won it. They've craved these games. Big games, consequences, major opponents, major network. Well, it doesn't get any bigger for this year's team than on ESPN against LeBron James, against the Lakers, in what might as well be a road game. And with all of these things coming together, to me, the Lakers are the perfect opponent for this iteration of the young growing Pacers, and even more fitting that Tyrese Halliburton's favorite player growing up was LeBron James, like many young players. So this is just really awesome to me from just every angle of sports that some people like the basketball perspective, which we'll talk about in just a second, the storytelling perspective, the fandom perspective, just the glitz and glamour of a big game, the in-season tournament finals, which, again, has become certainly a thing. Like, I'm here. And I saw a lot of people talking about this. I didn't address this really yesterday. The ESPN broadcast might have been terrible for like what the crowd felt like, but it was a good crowd for the Pacers-Bucks game. It was obviously better for the Lakers game, but it was a good crowd. Like, they were loud and into it and engaged. It's going to be cool. And I think that the Pacers having the opportunity to once again have this moment, and they kind of are already, right? They're everywhere right now because they're in this game, and Tyrese Halliburton's a star, and they've been all over the airwaves, and they're all over big media networks. They've earned that with their play this week by reaching this game, but they'll earn it even more if they can win, right? You saw what kind of coverage Zion got for losing to the Lakers, right? There's a lot that comes with this, and the Pacers are in it, and they've earned the right to be so. And I think it's very cool that they're playing the Lakers because it just adds to what they've accomplished, right? And the final part of this that I just referenced a second ago, the basketball part. The Lakers, we'll really dive into them in the second segment, but they just big picture are kind of like basketball kryptonite for the Pacers. That's a little extreme, I'll admit, but they're 6th in defense, and that undersells them to me. And the Pacers against top 11 defenses, I cut off at 11 because Portland's 11th in defense entering today. Some of their worst games, Portland, Orlando, Boston, on top 11 in defense. Now, they've beaten the Celtics. They've beaten the Cavs, who are top 10 in defense. Right? It's not like simply being a good defense is enough to make you a tough task for the Pacers. But those are the teams that have been able to get the Pacers totally out of their game as good defensive teams. No one else has really been able to. The Bulls kind of did. That was their only fluky one. But other than that, good defenses have been the only thing that have made the Pacers look like a young team, an inexperienced team, something I've criticized them for often. The Lakers have the defensive capabilities to do that. That's not saying they will. That's saying they can. They also have giant wing players, giant forwards, Anthony Davis and LeBron, of course, being the head of those. But like Rui Hachimura is like the perfect bill of player who has a big game against the Pacers because they don't have the size to put on him. Taurean Prince is a perimeter guy, mostly on the wing, but he also is, in theory, that size and build of player. A lot of the things about the Lakers really kind of fit into the archetype of this is the kind of basketball team that this iteration of the Pacers has not done well against. And I say to that, perfect for this Pacers team. They have just said, bring it on to all that in this tournament, right? Boston, a team that is amazing on defense. I just watched them beat the Knicks in my hotel room a couple hours ago. Their defense was great for stretches of that game. They won big. They're a fantastic team. Pacers said, we got this. No problem. We'll hold them to 112, and we'll score 122, and we'll score when it matters. No problem. Oh, the Bucks, who've been almost top 10 in defense since they switched back to drop coverage with Brook Lopez. Yeah, no problem. We can score on them. Cavs in the group stage, no problem. Philly, who was top 10 at the time before they played the Pacers, no problem, right? They have figured out against teams like this. And so having another chance to do it against a team that brings all sorts of new challenges their way, it's going to be fun. And I think they know that it being the Lakers is a little more, right? I asked Obi Toppin, Ben Mathurin, TJ McConnell about that, right? Like, does it being the Lakers like add to it a little bit? And, it's just a game. That's like no one is saying it's just a game. But it's just one game. Like, it's not a series. There's no finality if you lose. But all of that stuff coming together and playing LA, it just adds to it. This is the perfect opponent to me. And that's what my story was from practice today. If you want to read it on SI Pacers, it's just like, this is perfect. If they lose, they lose because the Lakers would have been better than them in that case. But in terms of just every fun thing about sports coming together for a best of one game with consequences, with prize money, with pride, like Rick Carlos had the first one of these ever. This is the perfect opponent for the Pacers to me. And I think that is awesome and just adds to this and adds to the task at hand for Tyrese Halliburton and co. And the Lakers are tough. I went big picture with them just a second ago, but I really want to dive in to the Lakers for just a segment here to talk about this game coming up tonight. Before we do that, though, we are going to talk about the wonderful people over at FanDuel. NFL is rolling, and as it gets colder out, the NFL offers on FanDuel stay hot. How about that? It's hot here in Vegas. And right now, new customers on FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. How about that? $5 if your team wins, you win 150. What a great deal. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time than right now to get in on the action with a deal like that. Are you kidding? $5 to win 150 plus the NBA is rolling, the NHL is rolling, NFL in their final 1/4 of the regular season with the playoffs coming up. Everything is popping in the sports world, and FanDuel is the place to be for it. Their app is easy to use. They have a wide range of betting options, including player props, over-under spreads, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season over on FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We keep it rolling here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Saturday is not typically a high upload day for Locked On, but check out Locked On Lakers. Here are the opponent's perspective on what's going on tonight. LeBron, AD, and co. Certainly a team with a lot of intrigue all the time, those Lakers. And that's where I start with them. They are interesting to me because, like I just said, big picture, they stand out because their defense is so good. I think their record sells them short as well. After tonight's games, they did not move. They did actually. I just lied to you. The Thunder had a good defensive game against the Warriors. Went to overtime. Also watched that game. A lot of NBA on in my hotel room. The Lakers are 7th in defense now. They were 6th before I just checked it just now. They're a good defensive team. That's their thing. That's what made them so good last year. Is they were, especially after the trade deadline, near the top of the league in defense. They could pair it with good transition play, and obviously LeBron, AD, and Austin Reeves could give them just enough points to win these games, right? They're a good team. They really can defend. Oh, Portland's in the top 10 in defense. My stats are all blown up. And so that is where this could be tough for the Pacers is. They're big and they can defend, and that has caused them trouble. I don't want to totally rehash everything from the first segment, but like Orlando is 2nd in defense, and they're big in the front court. Boston is 3rd in defense, and they're pretty big in the front court. Those two teams give the Pacers a lot of trouble, right? Not a secret. Pacers didn't score well against the Cavs, but the Cavs couldn't score well against them. The Cavs have a big front court. They have the 8th best defense. I don't need to go on and on with this. You get the idea. But that is where, big picture, I would say, well, this Lakers team could be tough for the Pacers. But I will reel that back a bit because there is something the Magic have, Jalen Suggs, and that the Celtics have, Drew Holiday, although Tyrese Halliburton didn't play against the Celtics the first time, that the Lakers don't, and that is a premier good perimeter defender, someone you can throw on Tyrese Halliburton and make his life hard. The Magic were have still to this day been the best team this season at making Tyrese Halliburton have a tough night, make him go left as often as possible, and Tyrese has gotten better going left. He'll acknowledge that, but that's still a weak part of his game. Teams like to have him go that direction. That's why, if you'll notice, he comes up the left side a lot because then he has more room to the right to go. But they don't have that like lockdown, oh gosh, this is the guy that's going to clearly guard and really ruin Halliburton's night kind of perimeter defender. They have good enough perimeter guys, right? Reeves is a fine defender. LeBron and AD, when they're engaged, are great defenders, though you don't want them on the perimeter all the time. Taurean Prince is a fine defender. But that's what separates them from some of these teams that actually have given the Pacers a lot of trouble. Portland, Brogdon defended okay. Halliburton was kind of sick that night, right? That was a weird game. Also, Portland is not as bad as their record. They're like 500 when Brogdon plays. That doesn't matter. Jeremy Grant also, like they have defenders that they could stick on him. But either way, you get what I'm saying. The teams that have given the Pacers the most fits, Caruso, have somebody with the Bulls that they can put on Halliburton and actually slow the Pacers. Either that some teams full court press him, some teams give him pressure right when he crosses half court, some teams just have guys who are really technical with their feet and can force them out, whatever. That has worked. The Lakers don't have that to me. They have good defenders. They're a good defensive team. I'm not trying to belittle that. I'm just saying the stuff that actually has caused the Pacers specific problems, especially Halliburton, is not necessarily something the Lakers have. And so, yes, I hit you with the lazy analysis in the first segment of, well, they're a good defensive team. And in general, teams that can play slow and defend well have given the Pacers trouble. To be clear, the Pacers first in pace. What a contrast in styles with the Lakers, who aren't slow. They're 9th, but it's a big gap between 1st and 9th. Is going to be fascinating because they don't necessarily have all the tools that some other teams have to really slow them down. So one thing that I already talked about, the Lakers defense isn't necessarily this giant wall that some other good defensive teams can be for the Pacers. But what is a giant wall is where the Lakers points come from. I already talked about this. But this has been a problem for the Pacers all season. This is not a secret. Big wings, and they have them. LeBron, obviously. And LeBron is scary right now. You just saw what he did to the Pelicans, 38 assists. He was amazing in that game. He's at that level. Oh, by the way, he had 31 points against the Suns in their quarterfinal game. Like, he's on a high level right now, clearly taking the in-season tournament to some level of seriousness, which is very cool, first of all. Great for the NBA. But he's a beast. And who's the best answer on the Pacers for him? Obi Toppin at times, Aaron Nesmith at times. We'll talk about Aaron Nesmith. I think he's a very important player in this game. Toppin was my X factor last time. He did well-ish. Nesmith's going to be my X factor this time. But LeBron is averaging 25 a game. That doesn't sound that intimidating. In fact, if you sort his basketball reference page by points per game, that's his second lowest season ever. Only his rookie season was lower. If you sort by field goal attempts per game for LeBron James in his career, this is the lowest. Under 17 for the first time ever. But he's a different beast because his efficiency is crazy. 55.3% from the field. Only Miami LeBron was above that. He's over 40% from three for the second time of his career. Again, only Miami LeBron, the best LeBron, is above that. He's a beast. I don't need to talk about LeBron James for too long. Everybody knows who LeBron James is. One of the best players ever. He's referred to as the king for a reason. But he is uniquely good this year at being efficient, at picking his spots, at knowing what he needs to do for the Lakers in the context of their offense. That kind of strength and size is just the type of player. Giannis just had 1 billion points against the Lakers. That typically does well against the Pacers. He does well against everybody, but they also do well against the Pacers. I'm not sure what the answer is going to be. And it's like, for years and years, everyone in the league wants to know the best answer of, do you try to guard him with one guy, or do you try to guard him with two? Or do you Tom Thibodeau overload his strong side style, or then he'll just pass you to death? Like, there's no easy answer to LeBron, right? But, oh, by the way, they also have Anthony Davis. Miles Turner's critical in this game for that reason. Another huge guy. He doesn't play the five. They have other fives out there all the time, right? They start games with AD, mostly at the five, you could say, but they try other stuff. Christian Wood will be in there at times. He plays a lot. Jackson Hayes will be in there at times, right? They try other stuff. They really do. So it's going to be tough to figure out exactly how to match up in that front court. And that doesn't even account for the 12-ish points they're going to get from Rui Hachimura, which I expect will be a little higher, because we have a long history of the Pacers struggling with that type of player. I don't need to go down the list of the non-star bigger wings who kill the Pacers, but if you've watched the Pacers for a while, you know it. For example, already this season, Pascal Siakam, I guess you could call him a star. Gordon Hayward, he's a classic case of this. In past seasons, Harrison Barnes, a classic example. Don't need to do this forever, but those guys are always what the Pacers struggle with. Well, the Lakers have them, right? And they also have Austin Reeves, who's a good perimeter threat. They're going to be a tougher cover than I think people are giving them credit for the Pacers. Even their lower end scores are bigger guys. Cam Reddish, Christian Wood, Taurean Prince. So it's going to be tough for the Pacers. I think it's going to be tougher for the Pacers to stop the Lakers than it is for some other teams. The Lakers aren't this awesome offense. In fact, they're 22nd in offensive rating, but I think they have good matchups to take their time and get to what they want against the Pacers. And that's where I think this game will be harder for the Pacers. Right? It seems like they clash, where the Pacers are awesome on offense and terrible on defense, and the Lakers are the opposite. But I feel like the Lakers can score against these Pacers. And so I will say the same thing I said against the Bucks, and I believe this proved to be true, depending on how you want to analyze that game. It's not about the defense to me for the Pacers in this game. It's going to be about the offense once again. Yes, getting stops is always important. Sure, if the Lakers have an awful shooting game, the Pacers will win. The Pacers' offense just has to be at its best. They have to be able to score like they did against the Bucks, at least to stay ahead of the Lakers, because I don't think they're going to be able to slow them down enough. The Lakers aren't a good offense, but LeBron's so good, especially in games like this. Their team is battle tested. They were in the conference finals last year. Anthony Davis is a beast. They have other guys with size. It's going to be hard for the Pacers to stop them. So the keys to me is, one, making sure your offense does well. Two, whoever's on LeBron has to make it hard for him to just do whatever he wants. And three, the perimeter guys have to have nice defensive games. If D'Angelo Russell, for example, has a big offensive game for the Lakers, the Pacers are going to be in trouble. Austin Reeves is a good player. He's had a down season, kind of. If he has a big game, that's trouble for the Pacers, right? Their perimeter guys have to defend well. They have to get beat by the expected guys, and they have to outscore that team. That's what it's going to take for me. And a critical guy to do that is Aaron Nesmith. I want to talk about him and in general some other guys who fit under the same bill as Aaron Nesmith to close out today's show, previewing the in-season tournament finals. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Check out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 news of sports on YouTube. All Locked On shows. It is the best way to get the latest news from the sports world. It's the best. It's fantastic. And it's 24/7 sports. Where else are you going to get that? Locked On can give it to you. Let's keep it rolling. My X factor for the Bucks game was Obi Toppin. He had the first points. He shot it well. He did better than he did in the first Bucks game. I wouldn't say he ended up being the X factor. I would say that turned out to be TJ McConnell. But I think Obi Toppin playing well was important in that game. His minutes at the small ball 5 went well. The Pacers, of course, won the game. I'm happy with that prediction. And I'm going to make another one for my X factor for this game for the Pacers. Yeah, like if Tyrese Halliburton doesn't play well, they're going to be in trouble. But it's Aaron Nesmith this time. It's Aaron Nesmith because, one, as you saw against the Bucks, he was their best guy on Giannis for much of that game. He's just strong, and he battles in there, and it's really the strength. But he's quick enough, and on the other end, he can slice you up on offense, right? He didn't in that game, but he has this season had some big games. Yeah, if he scores over 10 points, it's great, but I think they're undefeated when he scores more than 10 points. Yeah, of course, when a role player makes his shots, they're going to win or do better. But he is, when his offensive games that are best to me are less about the points and more about when he's totally dialed in on that end of the floor, he will attack the rim, every catch. It's catch, shot fake, and then boom, he's going to the rim. Really quick decision. And that it's like the games he's fired up for are the most locked in. And Aaron Nesmith is always giving you a ton of effort, but he has this, to use a sports cliche, 100% gear and then 110% gear for some games where he's just going at it all to the wall. And he was doing that against the Bucks. So even though he was only 2 for 6 with 1 assist, everybody thought he played well, and he was plus 16 in a 9-point win. He was very critical in that game. The thing that makes those drives really important that I just talked about, those reckless go, break down the defense a little bit drives, really important, is he's on the weak side a lot, right? And so he is usually, that's why his shot fake, put it on the floor move is so important, because the defense is usually rotating over from a pass from someone else, McConnell, Halliburton, Mathurin at times, Bruce Brown, whoever, they're rotating from the other side. And so Nesmith has that lane, and then someone has to rotate to stop under the basket, and then he can get a hockey assist going or just move the ball. When he's at his best, he's important in that way. So he's my X factor because of those moments, right? The Lakers are a good defensive team. If he can keep them in rotation beyond, Halliburton will start it or whoever the initiator is. If he can keep them in rotation, keep shooters open, be not a creator per se, but just someone who keeps the game moving, keeps the ball popping, I think that's going to be important for the Pacers. But he's the X factor to me because of the defensive stuff, right? He's going to get tough matchups all night. He's going to be on LeBron a pretty good amount. Making him uncomfortable, digging in against someone like that is critical. And he is their best option. Toppin's going to get some time, as we've seen in these games. He probably will start the game on him with Turner on Davis. That doesn't – I don't know what else they can do. And Toppin's are in that. He's had big defensive games this season, to his credit. And LeBron's not, blazingly fast anymore. So maybe it won't go horrible, but it might not go great. So Nesmith's my X factor because of that. But to go a little further on what I just said, anyone who's on the weak side doing the stuff that I just said about Aaron Nesmith is equally critical in those moments, right? If that's Ben Mathurin, Ben Mathurin was he didn't finish plays well. He was 3 for 12 against the Bucks, but I think everybody thought he played fine because he's making quick decisions, keeping the offense moving, making the right plays, and attacking on the catch, right? Doing the thing that I think has been important for him, which is reading the defense before the catch and attacking right away and not catching, turning, sizing up. If he can keep it moving, that's huge, right? Obi Toppin, same kind of deal. His shooting's been important. Shot fake, put it on the floor, keep it moving. He was great at that against Atlanta. Probably his best game of the season, maybe. I think you could argue some other games. I suppose he's been really good at times this year, right? But that Atlanta game, he was awesome. He was doing that a lot in that game. But he'll to get some opportunities that he's never really on the weak side per se, but he's been putting on the floor fine. Anybody who's in that situation, maybe Ben Shepherd for 2 minutes, although I'm not sure they'll extend their rotation with Nembhard out. is an X factor to me. Keep the Lakers defense in rotation, make them mess up. And that's important to me. They can't slow it down. They can't get caught in the Lakers game. One more thing I want to talk about briefly to end this one. Andrew Nembhard, we learned about his injury prognosis. The Pacers officially listed him out for the game with a right knee bone bruise. Sounds like painful, but doesn't sound like as bad as it looked. Had to get carried off the floor. We'll see how long he's out for. He had a sleeve on his leg when we could see him at practice. Rick Carlisle did not seem to think this was a long-term thing, but there were still some more tests to be had at the time we talked to him. But his quote was, "The hope is that all it is a mild hyperextension." Nembhard was great, of course, especially in the second half against the Bucks. He defended Dame very well in a pivotal time when Dame was catching fire. He was 4 for 5 from the field, 4 for 4 in the second half. I still value his play much higher than it seems like most do. Defensively, his passing in space is obviously very impressive. McConnell has been great, filling in as the backup point guard, especially in these NCAA tournament games. I don't think they'll miss a beat there. Like, actually, Nembhard came in when, like, Bruce Brown hurt his ankle in the first half against the Bucks, and then when Bruce Brown was terrible in the third quarter. Like, I don't know if he was, like, guaranteed to play. He was their 10th guy, certainly, it seemed. So it's not like they're losing a ton of rotation from what their perceived rotation was from Thursday, especially if they were going to shrink it in a pivotal game. McConnell, again, I think will just play a little more. If they have to go 10, this is just going off of A, their season, but B, the jerseys we saw at practice. I would guess it'd be Ben Shepherd. Get a shooter out there. A rookie in a big game like that's tough, but I don't know what other option they have. Jordan Nwora, if you need the size, I suppose, but I would guess Ben Shepherd would be guy number 10. Maybe that's just the best way for them to get a 5-man lineup on the floor in practice. But seems like Nembhard avoided anything like super, super serious, but he's not going to play. I would guess he'll miss a little bit more time than that. It did not look great when it happened. We will see. We will see how it affects this game. Of course, Nembhard's signature moment of his career was against the Lakers. I can't wait for this game. And we're going to go 7 days this week because of the in-season tournament, breaking it down here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. So another show tomorrow breaking down whatever happens in the game. Of course, I'll be there. Like you can see if you're watching on YouTube, T-Mobile Arena is right behind me. Very fortunate to be here and this close to all the action. Thank you all for listening on this weekend and making it this far. Much appreciated here from the Locked On Pacers podcast. Back tomorrow, talking Pacers. Back next week, talking when the regular season resumes. Reminder, this game does not count against their regular season record. Thank you all for listening. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East. The show is at Locked On Pacers. Till then, everybody, have a great day.